Today I'm going to share with you my 9 biggest lessons that I learned from my eating disorder recovery. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist. This is the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I myself suffered from bulimia between the ages of 17 and 25 years old. I've been recovered now for over 20 years and now I work as a therapist and support others in their healing. So let's dive into some of the 9 biggest lessons I've learned, some of the things that I wish I knew back in the day, some of the things that really helped me. And I hope this will really inspire you, give you hope, encourage you, and also to really lean into self-trust and what is going to really work for you, because I think everyone's journey is unique. So number 1, don't give up. Lean into the self-trust. Believe that you can recover. Now, I know myself, I went to the doctors about 3 or 4 years into my recovery back in the day, walked in, burst into tears, thought, oh my God, I'm finally telling someone this is going to be the time that I finally get help. Finally, things are going to turn around. I'm going to get the support I need. I'm going to get out of this awful eating disorder, because that particular time I felt so trapped. I was in awful cycles of binging and purging and restricting. Just felt really out of control of the whole situation and was just desperate for some kind of help or intervention. But I went to the doctors, I burst into tears. The doctor was supportive and kind, but the doctor basically told me that there was no help available, that actually the local eating disorder service had closed down recently, and basically I was out there on my own. And I remember walking away from that feeling so disillusioned, so fed up, just thinking, oh my God, will I ever recover? Now, I just want to say to you, obviously I did go on and recover, and I went along many dead ends, met many dead ends before I actually came out the other side and totally healed. And I had sort of several different bouts of therapy, did a lot of self-help, a lot of reading, a lot of talking to friends, all kinds of things, but before I was actually able to fully recover. So I just want to say to you that I think there are many roads to recovery, and sometimes you will really hit some dead ends. Sometimes you might go into the NHS, the National Health Service, if you're in the UK, and you might find their help is really helpful. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you might go into that support and find it's really unhelpful. But I think in the whole recovery process, what I would say is that it's so important to lean into the self-trust and start to notice what is working for you, because there are many, many ways to recover. And I think if something really feels off and it really feels that it's detrimental and it's not fitting with your recovery process, then I think it's about trusting that. Now, obviously, your eating disorder will fight against help. It will sometimes be very resistant to change. So that is one thing to consider. But I think it's about recognizing that you need to pursue paths that feel right to you. Now, for some people, that's therapy. For some people, that's coaching. For some people, that's somatic work. For some people, that's yoga and multiple other ways. But I think the thing to hold on to is realizing that recovery is possible for you, and there are many ways to do it. Some will be more symptom focused, some will be on the deeper work, some will be more spiritual, some will be more scientific, some will be more nutritional. Follow what feels right for you, and you don't need to know the whole story about how you're going to get there, what it's going to look like, see the other side of things. It's just almost following the next breadcrumb and trusting that that will take you one step further. And I guess just to really normalize that I've been recovered from my eating disorder for over 20 years, and I've been symptom-free of restriction and binging and purging and all of those things for a really, really long time. But I'm still continuing to work today on some of the deeper issues around my childhood trauma, my people-pleasing tendencies and other things. And that is a lifelong journey, but that's okay. So that is it. Number 1, don't give up. Keep pursuing recovery. Okay, number 2, symptom work can be essential before you dive deeper. Now, again, there is no right or wrong way here, but if you are in a place at the moment where you're under eating, you're really restrictive. When I think of my own journey, when I was underweight, I felt cold, tired, irritable. I couldn't concentrate. I was preoccupied with food. I withdrew from my friends. I was not in a good place mentally or physically. Now, for me at that point, trying to talk about some of the underlying issues and deal with some of the emotional triggers beneath my eating disorder would have almost been nigh impossible, because I almost needed to get some sense of stability, almost to start to feel a bit more like a normal human, whatever normal is. I know there are many different, there is no one normal, but what your normal is, what your kind of baseline healthy place is. So you don't have to be completely symptom free to work on the emotional stuff beneath, but having some sense of stability and starting to break out of the symptom cycles can be really, really helpful. So I guess another example is if you are purging or if you're chewing and spitting multiple times per day, you are probably not very connected with your body. You're probably not very connected with your emotions because you're so caught up in the almost like addictive cycles of the eating disorder. So I'd really say to you, get some help with trying to interrupt some of the symptoms first, or you might be able to do this a bit on your own. So it's just trying to get some stability. So trying to perhaps eat a bit more or do some regular eating or reduce the purging. So you're starting to interrupt those symptoms because that will give you a much more stable base and platform for further change. And that definitely helped me. And it wasn't a nice process. I pretty much binged my way back to a normal healthy weight, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone, but that's what I was doing at the time to cope. But actually, once I was out of extreme hunger and starvation, I was in a so much better place to be able to deal with the underlying emotional issues and start the full healing process. Okay, so that's number 2, working on the symptoms. Okay, number 3, regular eating is key. Okay, so I was half on about this, and anyone that watches or listens to my content would probably be thinking, Harriet, I've had enough of the regular eating. But the boring, unsexy work of regular eating is fundamental in recovery. Now, I know for myself, I was eating literally like dry bread with cottage cheese and satsumas. And I remember when I was getting more into a regular eating pattern, I remember sitting down and having like cheese and pickle or something on toast and a Kit Kat, something like that. But I remember at that point, okay, that wasn't easy in many ways because I was breaking lots of food rules, but I remember just feeling it in my body, oh my God, I finally feel satisfied. I finally feel I'm out of feeling absolutely starving all the time. I finally feel some sense of yum and pleasure and joy from eating, and just how much better I then felt in my body. Whereas when I was restricting, I felt in fight and flight and anxious and just not in a good place. And being more nourished, having a regular eating pattern, having some stability, it just provided such a strong scaffolding and framework for further change. And I would say at the beginning, you're not going to know your hunger and fullness cues. You're not going to trust your body. If you are underweight, you're going to be dealing with extreme hunger. It's all really messy and imperfect in the whole journey, really, but particularly in the beginning. So I would say to you, implement some structure with regular eating. And this means having balanced meals, thinking about stabilizing your blood sugar, not becoming obsessed about blood sugar, but just making sure that you're eating enough to feel satisfied. So this means like at a main meal that you're having protein, you're having some carbohydrates, maybe some slow release ones just to help stabilize blood sugar. You're having some good fats, maybe having vegetables, etc. So you're including a good balance of foods because that's going to make your body feel so much calmer, more stable, more satisfied. Whereas if you are just trying to eat vegetables and protein, for example, you're just going to be craving carbs, and later on in the day, you're probably going to be craving sugar. You're going to be preoccupied with food. So that regular balanced eating is so, so, so important. And I would say that was probably the one biggest game changer for me in recovery. Now, of course, all the emotional stuff, other layers of recovery are so, so, so important, but regular eating is key. Okay. Number 4. Okay. You need to start reintroducing your old forbidden foods with safety. Now, I know in my own recovery, I was so black and white. I was either like pure restriction, really super clean eating, or I was binging, eating everything in sight, everything that I would never allow myself. And it was so black and white. It was really all one way or all the other. And of course, I was constantly craving sugar. I felt like I was addicted to food. I had so much kind of food noise, food preoccupation, all of those things. And I think when we're in these destructive cycles, we think, okay, I just need to restrict more and eliminate those foods because then I'm going to feel safe and in control. But actually, that doesn't work. Now, it's really important to start reintroducing these foods safely. Now, some people go all in and just allow themselves free access to everything. And I think if that's what you want to do, that is all well and good. There are many ways to recover. But if that feels just so overwhelming and terrifying for you, you can start to do it incrementally, gradually, introducing foods bit by bit. Maybe first of all, you have the food like a cake or something, you have it outside your home with a friend in a cafe. You plan it so you're not going into the episode starving hungry. You create safety around the episode. You challenge your thoughts and feelings. You maybe phone a friend afterwards. You can do it in a gradual, incremental way so you can start to build up confidence and safety around food. Now, again, like I said, some people go all in and just want to allow themselves completely free permission to eat everything. And I think that is fine too. And the end goal with whatever method you use is to have complete freedom with food and to be really intuitive with food. But it's just different ways to do it. So it's really important to do this. If you don't do this, you're always going to have food on a pedestal. Certain foods will just induce so much guilt or so much excitement. They'll be up there on the pedestal. Whereas, I think of myself today, I've got a chocolate box in the kitchen full of chocolate. It is not really that significant in my life. Yes, I eat chocolate every day, but I'm not obsessing over it. When I had an eating disorder, that chocolate would have been like a magnet, calling me, pulling me. I would have been obsessed by it. I would have thought, right, I've got to eat everything in the chocolate box and then I will be fine. And then I can start the new diet plan tomorrow. But you want to be introducing these foods, but do it gradually, do it safely, do it bit by bit. Okay, number 5, body image. Okay, so body image is a huge trigger. If you have been underweight and you've got a lot of validation and praise and you like your smaller body, it can be hugely difficult to then gain weight and feel that you're in this larger body, more normal weight body, whatever, and you feel that you have lost something. So it's very normal, I think, to grieve a smaller body because of in the culture that we live in. It's the reality, isn't it? Skinny is really valued and we can't get away from that. It is the ocean that we swim in. And I think the reality is that for a full and flourishing recovery, one has to almost get in one's own lane and reject some of that to some extent and actually just think, not that I don't, that you don't self-care or you still don't value how you look and your appearance, but it's really rejecting some of those ideals and realizing for me to be in that body, that's going to come to me at a huge cost. And actually that is not worth it because actually I want to live my life and not be distracted by food noise, cold, poor concentration, etc. So it's almost like you have got to get in your own lane a bit with that. And I think it's starting to realize what really helped me is when I was at my thinnest in my early 20s, people would come up to me on the street sometimes and give me compliments, ask me how I did it. There was a lot of external validation, but I remember when that happened to me, just really noticing that, oh my God, I really thought this is what I wanted, but realizing that those comments felt empty. They didn't actually make me feel better. They made me feel like, oh my God, there is more pressure now to try and maintain this. And also the people that were giving me that validation were probably not the people that really mattered to me, the people that I really loved, the people that really knew me. I felt very objectified and that didn't feel good. So I think, again, what's really helpful is to realize that actually what's so important is what we want in life as humans is we want to feel accepted, validated, loved, for who we are. And actually that is very different from being put on a pedestal and people kind of standing around you saying, oh my God, you're so thin, you're so beautiful. That doesn't really bring us the acceptance and the validation that we hope. Okay. So I think, again, it's a good mindset shift just to realize that is not going to work. That is not going to work. And be ruthless with the body image side of things, like stop weighing yourself, stop body checking in the mirror numerous times a day. You need to be really, really quite ruthless with these things. Stop scrolling on social media and all the things. Okay. Number 6, relationships are key. Okay. Now for me, my relationships with my closest friends have been invaluable over all the years, still are to this day. We're particularly in recovery. Now, I wouldn't necessarily talk about eating disorder specific things with people, but I would talk about emotional stuff that I was going through. I would talk about stuff from my past. I would talk about my personal development journey. And I shared that with other people that were also on a journey and wanted to have those conversations. Now, not everyone wants to go and do the deep work and have these conversations, but a lot of people do. And you just need to find those people, okay? There's a lot of people now out in the world that really want to do a lot of deep healing work. And I think probably many more than like when I was in my 20s. So relationships are key. Relationships are so much more important than any external validation and being put on a pedestal for how beautiful and thin you are or whatever. You know, relationships, being able to talk to someone who really understands you, who listens, who encourages you, who is your big supporter, friend, that I cannot emphasize enough how important relationships are. You know, I say that's almost one of my biggest takeaways. Number 7, the emotional processing of feelings and what's beneath the eating disorder is an essential part of recovery. Okay, you can't just change your relationship with food and start eating regularly and not process the stuff from the past. Now, this can sometimes feel very daunting and overwhelming and really difficult, and it's quite messy because of when our emotions come to the surface, things that we've been burying, actually often it's a bit messy. We have meltdowns, we cry, you know, we get angry, all the things, but this is necessary, okay? And you're not going to just do it once, have the one conversation, have the one meltdown, and everything is then resolved and you just walk off into the sunset. It's a messy old process that you have to repeat again and again and again and again. And I'm still going through some of this today, even though I've been symptom-free from an eating disorder for many years. And I guess there are many ways to do this as well. Now, for me personally, I'm someone who is quite in touch with my emotions. So for me, through talking therapy or talking to my friends, I can access my emotions quite easily and, you know, express them. Now, that is not true for many people. A lot of people are very disconnected from their body and from their emotional world. They're very much in their overthinking headspace. So if you relate to that, you may need to do more somatic work, more something like EMDR. You know, there's different ways that you can get more into your body. It might be through movement, through yoga or something, but then different ways that you can get more into your body and then to really process those emotions. But it's essential to do it. And also things like journaling can help, speaking things out loud. You know, you can do a lot on your own personal development journey as well as in relationship. Okay, so I just say that's an essential part of the healing process. And if you try to just push down your emotions and cover them up, you will just likely transfer your eating disorder symptoms to another way of coping, maybe alcohol, overworking, something else, and you don't want to do that. Okay, number 8, really important to work on self-compassion and your inner critic. Now, I know for me, I used to be so self-critical. I had internalized so much of what particular people had told me in my life that wasn't helpful. I used to feel that I wasn't good enough. I used to feel I was unworthy, unlovable. I used to feel that I wasn't intelligent, that I was incompetent. I was told many times by someone in my life that I was incompetent. And that was really difficult. I really believed that to the core of my being for a very long time. And I still, in moments, can feel that to this day. But I've done a lot of work on becoming a lot more compassionate, working on softening that inner critic, being much more kind to myself. And being self-compassionate doesn't mean giving up on your goals, just being lazy and, you know, never achieving anything. It means about being your biggest supporter and friend. So really like valuing yourself, valuing your strengths, allowing yourself to step into your joy and passions and to just live your life fully in a way without this constant critic that is always berating you. And that's such powerful work to be able to do that. And it's an ongoing journey. It's a lifelong journey to fully soften that inner critic because most of us have that critic there. And number 9, really important, this helped me so much, is really like sculpt and design your life so you can fully step into your most full and embodied and joyful self. Okay, now this is easier said than done, but for me, with my recovery, what helped me so much is that I really knew very early on I wanted to train as a therapist. I wanted to support other people. I was passionate, absolutely passionate about my mission in life. Now, your mission in life might be to do with art or dance or photography or science, or it can be about many, many things. There is no one way to be fulfilled, but you will probably know what really lights you up. And if you've lost touch with that, think back to what really inspired you when you were sort of like pre 11 years old. What really lit you up then. And if you don't know, if you still have no idea, you might need to experiment and almost try things out and start to notice, where do I start to feel energetic, light, joyful, peaceful? What really comes naturally to me? Because when you are fully expressing your full self and stepping into your power and your enjoyment and fulfillment, things like your body image and what you're eating, etc., just almost fade into the background. It's not that you're having to kind of fight with them. It's because in a way your life has become so much bigger and so much more inspiring that a focus on food and body just isn't so appealing anymore. And you don't even have to try in the same way. Whereas when you're sort of just trying to like stop the thoughts, that's really, really hard. So that is my 9th tip. And I would say, if you start to really think about that and start really small, like if you don't have a big career purpose, because I think I'm a very career purpose type of woman. It's just how I was born. And if I hadn't done this, I probably would have been like a horse riding instructor and had my own stables and business and everything. So I knew that from really young, that that's the kind of thing I wanted to do. And I'm very passion kind of motivated and through kind of career, but not everyone is like that. So you just need to find what works for you. There is no right way. Okay. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are on the audio platforms, please follow, rate and review. I have a food freedom app if you want to explore your relationship with food and heal. Thank you so much for being here. I massively appreciate you. And I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.